and has predominantly features of large outcrops, which are basically extrusive igneous rocks. These rocks are scattered unevenly throughout the landscape, giving the whole landscape a rocky outlook. Also on Oshongo Hills are relative occurrence of metamorphic rocks such as marble, slate.
Federal government restates commitment to transparency and accountability in handling of resources.
Members of organized labor reject 45% electricity tariff hike, which began last week.
National Assembly soon to begin legislative work on petroleum industry bill.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we focus on agenda for the Niger Delta.
Now, one of the recurring challenges successive administrations in Nigeria have had to deal with has been how to address the numerous challenges in the Niger Delta region. Now, this is so because, to use the popular cliche, it is the region that lays the golden egg.
Well, that figure of speech illustrates the fact that most of Nigeria's crude oil comes from the Niger Delta region. Now, it's also common knowledge that the area has suffered serious environmental degradation arising from oil exploration and production, as well as, of course, pipeline vandalism and other criminal activities.
And there has therefore been concern that the region and its people should get commensurate socio-economic development, especially after the agitation that spiraled into militancy. Successive administrations introduced various programs aimed at alleviating the suffering of the people of the region.
Well, the various mechanisms that have been attempted in the past include the Niger Delta Development Board, and later we had OMPADEC, which has transformed into the NDDC, that's the Niger Delta Development Commission, the Amnesty Program, and eventually a Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs was established by the Yaradua administration. But in spite of the resources committed to the programs initiated by the various entities mentioned earlier, the challenge of underdevelopment of the region persists.
All right. Now, the Buhari administration inherited many of these assets and, of course, the liabilities. So, what does the government want to do with these, and what is its agenda for the Niger Delta region? All right, Kingsley.
Well, Claire, these are some of the questions that we'll be asking on the program today, and in particular, why does the Niger Delta remain as backward as it has been? And what, of course, are the challenges in the tackling, head-on the environmental degradation that the place has suffered over the years? Why is it that the various mechanisms appear not to have worked as were intended? We've had, a plethora of plans and plans and plans, honestly, and yet, the Niger Delta commissions and all kinds of things. Yes.
So many.
What is it that can be done differently?
All right, those are questions we shall be considering on today's program. My name is Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. Again, it's our pleasure to have you join us every morning on this station, NTA, Africa's largest TV network. Welcome.
And I'm Kingsley Osadelo, and I join Claire in welcoming you to this edition of the program. As Claire has said, we're live on the network service of the NTA. In the course of the program, we'll have our regular companion segments. This includes newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and others. We're going over to the newsroom now, and here is the original Lydia Sampson with the news bulletin. Hi, Lydia.
Hi, Mr. Kingsley and Claire, and to Nigerians, good morning. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says Buhari administration is committed to transparency and accountability in the handling of resources, including that from extractive industry. He stated this while receiving a delegation from the Global Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative led by the former Prime Minister of Sweden, Fredrik Reinfeldt.
I think at a time like this, it's extremely important that we keep a focus on transparency and accountability when it comes to how we handle all of these revenues.
Nigeria has always been in the lead. The processes that we have implemented served as the guidance through which the EITI fashions out its own standards.
Members of the organized labor comprising the Nigerian Labour Congress, their trade union counterpart, and civil society coalition have rejected the 45% electricity hike, which began on February 1st. The rejection was expressed in a mass protest along major roads in Abuja metropolis with a call for an immediate withdrawal of the policy or risks shutting down of electricity companies.
All over the world is based on consumption. You pay for what you consume. Why should we continue to pay for darkness? Why should we continue to pay where there are no meters? We call on Nigerians from today, they should resist payment of any bill that is based on estimation, that is also based on the current tariff.
If you don't stop down this increase in your tariff, we are going to forever picket you every day. We shut the discourse, we shut the junkers, and we shut the electricity regulatory agency in this country.
The truth is that this tariff, we ought to have been there from day one. And I don't know why the government of yesterday was not courageous enough to tell us this was the price. If you look at that tariff painstakingly, you will see that in about 2 years from now, it will begin to go down a sliding scale. It will get better. And I can only appeal for some understanding and some trust that we do this in the best interest of our country.
In the meantime, there was also a similar protest in Lagos. The protest march by organized labor was to Ikeja Electricity Company in Lagos. President of the Senate, Dr. Abubakar Bukola Saraki, says the National Assembly will amend the Procurement Act to compel ministries and agencies patronize made in Nigeria products. He stated this while declaring open a day made in Aba Trade Fair holding in Abuja.
We are looking for foreign exchange to buy goods from abroad and truly support and ensure patronize the made in Aba goods.
It behooves on us as a country to now make sure that we look internally.
That was the Senate President declaring open a 4-day Made in Nigeria trade fair. And Speaker of the House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara, has announced that the National Assembly will soon begin legislative work on its own version of the petroleum industry bill. He was speaking at a meeting with the International Board of Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative and its Nigerian counterpart, NTA.
The reform of the petroleum sector is of priority concern to us, and we shall make sure that we get it right this time around.
Nigeria has been really a role model. I also think, being a member of parliament, all these figures that you get throughout this process, it's very important that this is actually used for debate, for discussions.
The Senate Committee on Defense has advised the Defense Ministry to redirect some of its budgetary allocations in 2016 to the rehabilitation of military barracks in view of their present conditions. Minister of Defense Mohammed Mansour Dang Ali announced plan to recruit additional 10,000 personnel while defending the 2016 budget proposals of the ministry.
All the three services have their own contribution to the barracks. The one we are talking is the one is just an additional one from the Ministry of Defense, because that barrack rehabilitation has been scrapped. That is why we are thinking also of making additional input to what the three services are doing.
The House Committee on Financial Crimes has assured the Economic and Financial Crime Commission, EFCC, of its support to ensure sustenance of the war against corruption. This was at the defense of the 11 billion naira budget proposal by the Ministry of Budget and National Planning for the EFCC.
Because the expectation is too high and things are mounting. So you need to put our house also, we need to also put our house in order. We have to have a complete structure. We have to build capacity. That's why I'm requesting to employ 750 various cadres.
Support shall be given for the following major areas. A, adequate appropriation for the operational work of the Commission, improved welfare of staff and operatives, particularly the provision of reliable lives insurance scheme, completion of the permanent head office of the Commission.
Funds in the Treasury single account have risen to 2.3 trillion naira, with 98% of ministries, departments and agencies complying with the TSA directive. The federal government says it is taking it a notch higher with a workshop for accountants generals of state to sensitize them on benefit of TSA and its operations.
Treasury single account has eliminated opportunities for brokerage and other corrupt practices that previously encouraged agencies to accumulate funds with commercial banks.
The revenue accruing to government at all levels, the three tiers of government, have gone down drastically. So this is a better time for states to key in and to identify with TSA as a project, as a policy.
An FCT High Court has declined an application by former National Security Advisor Sambo Dasuki to quash charges filed against him and order his release, having perfected an earlier bail granted him by the court. The court says the former NSC is to remain in detention.
Draw a distinction between the arresting body and the complainant, the prosecution. What his lordship is saying is that the EFCC is different from the body that is detaining our client, and therefore, technically, EFCC is not in contempt of the order of the court.
The court has said that we are on course, that certainly the trial can go on, that we are not in contempt of court proceedings and the court order.
And that's the news for now. It's back to Claire and Kinsley, who are good to go with Good Morning Nigeria today.
All right, thank you very much, dear Lady Assumption, for the news package. We're taking a short break now, and after that, it will be time for our business segment.
Nigerians, do you know the look of a suicide bomber? They're usually in loose or heavy clothing, usually inappropriate for the weather. They carry bags or packages. They tighten their hands or keep them in their pockets. They are unaware of their surroundings, always alone and nervous. They'll be found driving cars, moving very fast or extremely slow. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. If you see something, say something.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Nigerians, our fearless officers and men of the Nigerian military are winning the war against Boko Haram. Today, all occupied territories have been recovered and Boko Haram has been degraded. Our affected brothers and sisters are getting their lives back. However, they are now after you and me. In our mosques, churches, schools, motor parks, markets, entertainment centers, and public gatherings. Be vigilant. be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me. Nigeria, unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
You get three kinds of moms. The paranoid mom. It's hot and it's dirty. The cautious mom. And the Dettol mom. Only a Dettol mom knows that ordinary soaps aren't enough. She only trusts Dettol to protect her family from up to 100 illness-causing germs, which is why we can worry less and love more. Don't just be any mom, be a Dettol mom. Dettol, be 100% sure.
Introducing the new Dettol 55-gram soap with the same germ protection and quality at a more affordable price. Buy the new Dettol 55-gram soap for 80 Naira only. Keep your family protected from germs.
All right, let's turn our attention to the business desk now, and from there we'll be having smitten to support agri-businesses in the country. And the Nigerian capital market opened with 2.02% gain to begin the week's trading session after a loss of more than 1.63 trillion in January 2016. And this is due to profit-taking and currency volatility. Details of these and more with Leah Katum Babatunde.
Medium enterprises in the country is creating access to market for agri-produce. The head of information communication technology of the agency, Ibrahim Abdul Malik, reiterated this during the launch of the farmers' online market in Abuja.
Part of the mandate of SMIDAN is to facilitate and promote the development of MSMEs in the country. And by way of capacity building for the entrepreneurs, creating the linkages to market, finance, and equipment.
He said the agency will collaborate with other agencies to ensure owners of small businesses get ready markets for their products.
On our website, we have a number of visitors visiting the website daily. If they so agree, we can link our website, we can create a link whereby people visiting our website can also link the website of the OFOM to be able to access the information there and probably transact businesses on the platform.
Last-minute rally by Dangote Cement helped lift the all-share index of the Nigerian Stock Exchange as the bourse opened the week. Next is a graphic summary of trading figures at the close of Monday's session. And the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, says it aims to eradicate the difficulty encountered by retail investors in claiming their dividends. This is with a view to ensuring the full implementation of the 10-year Capital Market Master Plan. The SEC last year, July, in collaboration with the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, and the Nigeria Interbank Settlement System, NIBSS, launched the e-payment platform and advised investors and all stakeholders in the capital market to approach their banks and registrars to obtain an e-dividend mandate form for immediate processing and upload to the e-dividend mandate management system. A statement by SEC states that the Director General, Munir Gwarzo, described the e-dividend platform as a game changer in the market that would ensure that infractions are reduced to the barest minimum. Nigeria's economic growth is forecast to accelerate in 2016 from its slowest pace in 16 years as government increases investment in power and housing projects and tackles wasteful spending. The National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, said growth in gross domestic product is forecast to be 3.8% in 2016 from an estimated 3% last year, and the plunge in oil prices that's hammering government revenue is fueling a transformation of the economy.
When you are at a state government or a local government, you are trying to plan and you are trying to figure out the resources at your disposal. It might be a good indication of what might come to you as a state or a local government or at the federal level to enable you to plan, particularly now that the country is facing challenges getting resources as a result of the drop in the price of oil.
The report said government is using 2016 budget as an opportunity to reset and redirect the macroeconomic dynamics of the country, adding that proposals to plug fiscal leakages and invest at least 1.6 trillion naira in capital projects are steps moving the economy into the right direction. The agency predicted an annual average of 5.4% expansion over the 3 years from 2017. That is Business News this morning. Thanks for watching.
Leah Captain Babatunde, thank you for the business package. We're moving on now, and coming up next will be the newspaper review.
Bayo Atoyobi, the Good Morning Nigerian newspaper reviewer, is here with us for today's edition. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Claire, let's begin with you.
All right, let's start with the Punch. And the Punch leads with this story: will probe Okonjo-Iweala. The Ziane soon, says EFCC. You can find the details of that on page 2. It comes with a rider. Budget slash will affect Commission's performance. That's from Magu. And then you see the different sides to the picketing of the electricity companies yesterday. You find there from Lagos, Abuja, Kaduna, and Benin. Electricity tariff, labor stages nationwide protest, threatens strike. All the details of that on page 9. And there are quite a number of trending stories just above the masthead. Sanusi faults CBN on Naira exchange rate. It's on page 32. Court rejects Tompolo's plea to vacate arrest warrant. It's on page 8. And TB Joshua's engineers to be arraigned on February 18, also on page 8. Arms scam. EFCC detains Bade, gets order to hold Amosu, also on page 2. And Dasuki's rearrest, also trending on the right-hand column there. EFCC didn't disobey court, says George. PDP crisis deepens as party shifts neck and BOT meetings. Foster father of man allegedly killed by wife dies. That story is on page 5. That's the front page of the Punch.
Well, this day newspaper also has a number of stories on its front page, including its own perspective on the labor protest yesterday against the hike in electricity tariff. The lead story says, labor protest fails to disrupt power supply. It has 2 riders. FG must protect current stability in electricity sector, says Fashola, and Saraki will stand with the people. And other economic stories, of course, are also on the front page. Adeoshun, that's the kicker. TSA proceeds may reduce deficit financing. And federal government, National Assembly to open discussions on 2016 budget revenue framework. Above the name flag of this day, we have 2 other headlines. Again, Sanusi criticizes federal government's Naira policy. Sanusi, of course, is the former governor of the Central Bank and current Emir of Kano. Senate, ignore rantings of senators' call for Saraki's resignation. Details of that can be found on page 8. And also the last story on the front page of this day, no local government under Boko Haram control, says Shetima. Details of that on page 8.
All right, Kingsley, all the stories we have read so far also trend on all the other papers, Daily Trust and The Nation, particularly the picketing yesterday by the NLC, as well as the story on Okonjo-Iweala. I'll take some other trending stories, but let's go over to Bayo.
Yes, let me put the record straight about the protest by the Nigeria Labour Congress and TUC. The 2 unions never said they were going to disrupt the electricity supply. What they said was that they were going to continue picketing the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, the DISCOs and the GENSCOs until they reverse the position on the tariff. Be that as it may, however, the Senate President received the protesters at the National Assembly, and he said the National Assembly will help resolve the impasse before avert further unrest. The Minister of Power and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, has said that the new rates are a painful pill that we ought to have swallowed long time ago, but down the line, it is hopeful that it will improve electricity supply. Also, the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission has reacted. It says anyone dissatisfied with the tariff can appeal within 60 days. It says that the Electric Power Sector Reform Act 2005 allows aggrieved persons to appeal, and therefore the door is not closed. The Commission door is open for further discussion. And Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, he says, will not contravene a court order. The other story that also Kingsley read was on the issue of TSA. The information there is that 2.3 trillion was mopped up with the introduction of the Treasury single account, not on a daily basis. But what came to the fore was a representative of the Accountant General of the Federation indicated that there were 17,000 bank accounts in various commercial banks, and so far 98% of them have been mobilized, and therefore 726 ministries, departments, and agencies have complied fully. And the Minister of Finance also indicated that this amount will go a long way to reduce the deficit in the 2016 budget.
All right, Bayo, just to go over to Vanguard newspaper now. Vanguard, of course, you spoke to this issue yesterday, and this is the lead story in Vanguard. Supremacy rating. Benin Palace takes on Alake of Egbaland, and it has 3 riders. Oba of Benin greater than any Yoruba monarch, and that's attributed to Esogma. Says Oni of Ife hails from Benin, and Yoruba Obas keep mum, and Southwest leaders split. The story starts on the front page, and it jumps to page 5. There are a few interesting sentences there from the story that, Bayo, let me just take this up because, you, as I said, you discussed it yesterday. It said, we are not in Yoruba land, and to be frank, it is because many of them are not willing to come up with the truth. The word Oba is alien to Yoruba monarchy. It is not part of their title from time immemorial. And the Esogma goes ahead to add that maybe the Alake wanted to mention a different place and not Benin.
All right, and finally from me.
But I mean, you spoke to this yesterday.
Well, it is to be expected. In fact, the Esogma went down history and said that when there was a constitutional conference in 1942,
that's correct,
all the Obas, that the traditional titles that are reported for that conference, it was only the Oba of Benin that bore the title Oba. And he also had another revelation that, in fact, the Oni is supposed to be the son of the Oba of Benin, that he's a prince of Benin Kingdom.
Where is the word Oba derived from? Is it a Yoruba vocabulary?
He says it's not a Yoruba. According to him, he says it's a Benin word and not even a Yoruba word.
So it's not Oba?
Well, in Benin, it is Oba. It is Oba in Benin. And in Yoruba is Oba.
Oba.
Yes.
Well, that's an inflection. That's an inflection. Yes. But the point, by the way, the Esogma of Benin is a retired journalist. He was the chief information officer.
Chief David
in the Midwest, and then of course the old Bendel. So
anyway, let's leave the controversy to the traditionals.
Yes, let me quickly just take this one just before, so that you can quickly round up. Just a few trending stories atop the masthead of the Nation newspaper. No council under Boko Haram control, says Shatima. It's on page 42. And Health Minister Adewale disowns ministry's budget. Health Minister Adewale disowns ministry's budget. Abuja rail to run from December 2017, says FCT Minister. And EFCC detains ex-defense chief Bade after quizzing. The federal government in order over Dasuki's rearrest is there, says court. And just below the masthead, the story on Okonjo Iweala under probe for 3.6 million euros vehicles deal. EFCC to quiz ex-service chiefs in new phase of arms cash investigation. Bye.
Well, quick comments. The Honorable Minister for Health advised the Senate to discard the budget proposal before it because he says that it has been distorted, and therefore the correct version will be sent back to the Senate. He also made a comment about Zika, and he said that Zika has been in Nigeria since 1954, but the Nigerian that we have developed resistance to it, so people should not worry to fear about Zika. In fact, the last case of Zika reported in Nigeria was in 1975. It was at the UCH. There was only one case so far in recent history.
Oh.
And they're talking about...
yeah, but the point you made, I mean, the point you made about the budget is a serious one. That's what is before the Senate committee on health, should be disregarded, and
Yes.
that, it said that the figures were padded or otherwise distorted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you refer to the story we reviewed yesterday. They refer to a budget mafia that has actually tampered with the budget. And I think it is not only Ministry of Health, several ministries probably may so be allegedly have been tampered with. The Borno State governor has said that the senator who says that 21 local government are still under Boko Haram was rather emotive, but the truth of the matter is that no local government is under the control of the insurgents. Sunday Olise, who said all those who are criticizing him are insane, has apparently apologized. He took exception to his criticism, and he said, having played 14 matches and lost only 2, he saw no reason why he should be criticized, and such criticism were just mark of insanity.
If they are constructive, he should take it in good faith.
The irony of it all was that at the last Cup of Nations, he was one of the panelists reviewing football on one TV channel. And he specifically said, Nigerians are so concerned about football that almost everybody sees themselves as a coach.
Yes.
And no matter what you do, they will criticize you. It's ironical now that he's taking criticism to be insanity.
Well, yeah, that's right. There were also reports that he went back to his base in Europe.
Belgium.
Yes, alleging witchcraft and all kinds of shamans, who've been disturbing his work as Super Eagles coach.
The other worrying thing was that before the House Committee on Sports, the chairman revealed that while our players were in the last championship, 2 players called him, his phone, and that of the speaker to complain that they have not been paid the allowances. Rather than the chairman ask why were the allowances paid, he advised the NFF chairman to call the boys to order. They are indisciplined. That was surprising.
There's an interesting story I'd like to read out from the inside page just before we let you go, Mr. Bayatebe. It's on page 5, and it's an excerpt from former President Olusegun Obasanjo's speech at the launch of world's biggest Bible. I was happy in jail, says Obasanjo. It's on page 5, but of course don't take that in the surface. You must go down, read up, the whole content of that speech to understand why he was happy in jail. But of course, a bit of the speech says, when I was in prison, I had joy. I was always bubbling, teaching and preaching to other prisoners. Indeed, the former president said, I was put in jail even though I didn't deserve it. He said, adding that while in prison, he became a born-again Christian.
Yeah, I was from prison, and of course he became the first elected president for the 4th Republic. I'm sure you remember that.
Yes.
That speaks to the core function of the prison.
Well, I don't know. Rehabilitation. I'm sure maybe if you saw the photograph of Obasanjo when it was released in 1998, I'm sure it looked scary at the time when he came out of that prison. It was Yola, I think. Yola prison. Just 2 other stories.
In fact, when they mooted the idea of the president, he said, how many presidents do you want to make of me?
All right. I would like to thank you. There are other stories inside. The former military governor of Lagos State, General Bolaji Johnson, has lost his wife. She was 76 years old. Bayo, we'll see you tomorrow on the program.
Yes, tomorrow is another day.
Okay. All right, it's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now.
We have always lived together as brothers and sisters. Though we speak different languages and celebrate different cultures, we were still one Nigeria. There was no bombing, there was no kidnapping, and our children were not cultists. Now, we suspect one another as there are spreads of cultism, bombing, and kidnapping. How long shall this go on? Terrorism is alien, kidnapping is criminal, cultism is barbaric. Nigeria is a blessed country. Support the Nigeria Police and the fight against terrorism, kidnapping and cultism. Always inform the police of any incident around you. Say something when you suspect something.
Remember, we all have a stake in building a crime-free Nigeria of our dream.
This message is from the Nigeria Police Force.
Why are you filming, Mommy? To help people stop getting sick. People think it's the ever-changing weather during Harmattan that makes them sick. Actually, it's the germs. Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs, including flu.
Dettol, endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
All right, let's kickstart our conversation for this morning and for today. Over the years, people of the Niger Delta region have been calling on government to mobilize necessary resources to attract development to the region in a view, or with a view, of course, in view of the devastating effects of oil exploration. And Jibono has this background report to set the pace for our conversation.
The discovery of oil in the Niger Delta region gave rise to a host of challenges, culminating in the request by indigents for justice and end to marginalization and environmental pollution. The Nigerian government over time made efforts to address the situation with the establishment of the Oil Mineral Producing Areas Development Commission, UMPADEC, and later the Niger Delta Development Commission in 2000 to serve as a tool for social, physical, ecological, environmental and human development. But despite this, armed groups later emerged in the area between 2003 and 2004. According to the groups, the region was neglected and underdeveloped despite its contribution to the wealth of Nigeria, and the activities of oil companies had caused serious damage to the source of livelihood of the people of the region. This militancy gave rise to many issues like piracy, kidnapping, pipeline vandalism, and a host of other challenges. The Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs was then formed in 2008 to coordinate efforts targeted at tackling challenges in the area, but the alarming level of destruction by the militants prompted a military operation by a joint task force to address the problem. This action of government was then followed by a 60-day amnesty for militants who in turn surrendered their weapons for training and rehabilitation by the government. It brought some stability to the area. Another government initiative known as the Presidential Amnesty Program later came on stream shortly after, with a mandate to cater for the 30,000 ex-agitators documented at the disarmament stage who received a monthly allowance. The Amnesty Office says it has no powers to either expand the program or accept new intakes. The program, which has since passed its demobilization period, is now in its reintegration phase. The Presidential Amnesty Program, which was to end in 2015, received a new lease of life with a pledge by the present government to keep it running. Observers have at various fora raised concerns over increasing bureaucracy on the part of agencies handling the region's affairs, which appears to be slowing down development in the area, and the need for better synergy between all agencies coordinating the master plan for the Niger Delta. They are, however, hopeful that the next phase of the program will bring about an enhancement in the region for prosperity.
And Jibono, thank you very much there for that background report. Of course, today we have a number of guests to discuss the issue of the Niger Delta. First, with us in the studio in Abuja is the Honorable Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Pastor Usani Uguru. Usani, that's Pastor UCube with the kind permission. Honorable Minister, it's our pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you for joining us in this conversation. I'm sure it's a conversation that's very dear to your heart. Now, there have been various committee reports, commission reports on the challenges and problems of the Niger Delta. There are also been no shortage on plans and programs on what to do about the Niger Delta. What may be in short supply is how to actualize them. Honorable Minister, I'm sure you must have your own plans for the Niger Delta. Would like to share with us?
Sure, we have our plans as a ministry, which is mandated to function and achieve certain goals. It's not even how that is in short supply. We know the how, but what we actually lack is the cooperation of various stakeholders concerned. It will appear that some of the things that are done by government in the region are quite remote, and so the people don't know about them. And these having been identified, we are doing everything we can to ensure proper enlightenment in the region and inclusiveness of those people in the region to understand that government effort is quite tremendous, except that sometimes it does not reach the populace that's intended to. So our plans will be to engender all the programs and update those that are obsolete in terms of the new challenges in order to be able to guarantee peace and secure the environment for peaceful operations of all economic corporations or organizations that are in the place, and give the people habitable living. Second, okay.
Proceed, please.
Secondly, one of the most challenging things that could have caused people or that could have enhanced the living of the people by being vocational in whatever they have chosen to do, being the nature of the area in terms of pollution and devastation of the environment, is currently gaining serious attention. Having had the president make international pronouncements up to 3 times, the relevant ministries, spearheaded by the Ministry of Environment, are having a ministerial committee which wants to start probably the Ogoni cleaning area within the first half of this year. And we are working out the modalities. We only hope that the people will allow us to do it, because nothing can happen when the people continue in their, manner of agitation or protestations. So we are working on that as a first step, without ignoring the other aspects that are expected of us as a ministry and other agencies intervening in the region.
Well, I just wondered, and I'm sure that stakeholders to whom you have also referred in Niger Delta will also wonder. Fine, I mean, we've had the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs. This is that is for over 7 years now, fully operational, as it were, funding challenges all over. Since you assumed office as the new minister in charge of the ministry, what is it that you have found in terms of what went on before and what remains outstanding?
Indeed, people have reduced the ministry's conception to just putting up infrastructure. Probably one major one that occupies the minds of people, the East-West Road. We have found that that is a misplacement. We have been working to bring up a profound plan with approaches that are actually expected to impact on the people. We have had meetings with various establishments. We've also had meetings with, development partners. We are designing a roadmap that enables us place mobilization, mass education, and reorientation as a foreline of our programs. Because until people get a form of orientation that commits them to ethical conduct in the region, it may be very difficult for anybody to appreciate what is being done. Because as we finish doing it today, tomorrow is being destroyed. So to sustain this means we must take a commitment by volition of conviction of the people to align with government in what we are doing. So the things that we have found, or the thing that we have found grossly absent, has been the commitment of the operators and the mobilization of the populace. So we are now working on that, and we are bringing out a plan very soon.
This plan, what you're talking about, I hope this is not a new development or master plan, because In the years past, we heard all kinds of things about Niger Delta Master Development, Niger Delta Development Master Plan, and so on and so forth. Is this a rehash of what went on before, or this one is focusing now on citizen mobilization to support the implementation of aspects of the previous master plan?
Indeed, we are not bringing out any new master plan or document plan. When I talk about plan, I'm talking about the program to mobilize the people, which is actually a very crucial aspect of the action plan of the ministry, which also has an impact on various other programs of the ministry. So when I mean a plan, I don't mean a document plan. I mean an approach that mobilizes the people, still to be able to achieve other aspects or components of the action plan of the ministry. And we are working in synergy this time around with the NDDC and the Amnesty Program Office. So we are not isolated. And at the end, I believe that this synergy will be able to produce required results.
Honorable Minister, you talked about the non-cooperation of the people as a result of ignorance of what government is doing, or most of government's plans being remote to them. Now, I'd like you to really tell us what you have found out about the reason why the people are not cooperating. Because sometime during the regime of former president, late President Musa Yar'Adua, and then VP, there were attempts to set up a Niger Delta, stakeholders conference, which was turned down. Rather, there was a technical committee led by Ledu Mite, of course, to compile all the commission's reports and the committee reports, previously undertaken by governments. Do you think that it's as a result of government's non-implementation of those findings of the reports that's responsible for the people's reaction?
Right. Those plans or the findings of whatever reports they put together do not substitute the program of getting the people involved and even understanding what the content of such plans should be. So it is difficult to know what their reasons are. But in my appreciation, by the complaints that come our way, we think there is not just one reason. For some persons, we have heard some people say, because our son of the South is no more president, they shall never find peace. That's unreasonable. Because if we don't find peace in the region to develop our region, we are the losers. We've heard some people think that the money that is being paid by the amnesty program is not enough. Money will never be enough for anybody to earn because there are always problems. And to this end, we think it is important for us to understand that whether we end it now or not, the payment of such stipends shall end someday. And it will be more profitable for the people to begin now to contemplate on having some things that are more sustainable. For instance, you'll be surprised at the number of persons that are sent out on vocational training, the number of facilities that are put on ground, yet they don't seem to be accessed, or if they are accessed, other people do not know that there are such advantages to take advantage of. So the reasons for what people do are varied. For instance, some people are just interested in continually bunkering. So for those ones, no matter what you do, they may never be satisfied because the earnings they get from such activities may never be able to be given to them by government.
But there are still huge infrastructural gap. We have a lot of environmental degradation, youth unemployment, and water view in the Niger Delta. Now, the technical committee on the Niger Delta, led by former MUSOP leader, was supposed to address all of these. Sure. What's the state of that?
The two issues you've mentioned, infrastructure gap and youth unemployment, have a national scope. So it should even be something of preference for our people to choose the path of peace, having received the special attention of government to say there is an addition to whatever the government is doing in terms of national budgetary activities, which gives us a leverage. NDDC is there doing certain things. The ministry is over here doing certain things, which gives an advantage of the region over others. So this gap is what demands national action. And of course, you know, by the nature of the national economy today, another intervening factors, global, local, security, and all that, it is impossible to say in such a short while these gaps will cease. Because if you understand the rudiments of demographic dynamics and the international labor dynamics of the current systems, you will understand that the issue of unemployment is global, and that's why you have interregional migration being a problem even to the Western region, Western countries. So these are things that we need to rather think together to address, and not to employ violence thinking we are addressing those things.
All right. I'm just wondering, Honorable Minister, some commentators often use the East-West road to assess the performance or relevance of the Ministry of Nigeria Delta Affairs, in the sense that the road has been under construction for as long as anybody can remember. Earlier when you spoke, you tended to be, you didn't seem, well, maybe I'll give you the opportunity to state exactly what you would do now about the East-West road. When should road users expect the East-West road to be completed? We heard about new bridges being built, XYZ, culverts and all of that. When will the East-West road be completed?
Indeed, Kingsley, just to add, there was a time that that road was awarded to different, contractors, working from the Port Harcourt end to the Delta State end of it.
Not even the Port Harcourt end, the Akwa Ibom end.
The Akwa Ibom end.
Yes. Until now, the road is still being worked by various contractors in different sections. And to ask when we think the road will be completed, for me, the completion of the road should have been yesterday. One project, I do not know of any biggest project in the world that takes 10 years still being constructed or developed. So in my view, we are already late in completing that road. The unfortunate decry is the fact that we have not even considered, or we hitherto didn't consider that it's a task that needed to be done with all apt attention. I say this because on our inspection of the road, we have found several things missing. We have also found that in some cases, the technical designs were faulty and people had reason to come back and realign, and this all amount to delays. And so to say when we'll complete at this moment is a difficult thing, because there is a section of it that is not even started at all. And so we are going to get back at redesigning. The design they had, I do not think it was technically formulated. And so we are going to redesign that section of the road. Otherwise, it will amount to waste of resources, waste of time, and of course, the enhancement of difficulty in the people, in the people's lives at the end of it. So, again, the challenge of having finances to complete the road, when we are expecting more, about 300 billion to complete the road at this time of our economic situation, it's a difficult thing. So, we are thinking around areas of concessioning to be able to do that road. And when we get the approval, we will immediately get into that. But I can assure you that every attention that we need to offer on that project will be fast-tracked, is being given highlight consideration.
I was just wondering, just a minute, Honorable Minister, 2 points. You said one of the sections of the road would need total redesign. Which section is that?
Around to Calabar.
Around to Calabar.
That's the addition.
That's the addition. But the next question is, part of what we've heard, at least since late last year and up until recently, that the government, the federal government had the budget size that it has this year, 6.08 trillion naira, because of the necessity to have infrastructure spent, so that we spend ourselves, or spend our way out of recession. So why should this not be a challenge? Is the East-West road not factored into this infrastructure spend that is part of the component of the national budget?
It is. But I can tell you the demands of the administration are so enormous that you don't expect, or well, even if we expect, it's difficult to get the expectations of our budget so easily achieved. There is no single ministry that has had, I think, up to 30% of its demand. And talking about infrastructure generally, the East-West Road is only one project within the infrastructure frame of the ministry. And you know what it takes to attend to other issues like the power sector, whose probably total requirements are basically foreign-based. Number two, when you hear about a budget, servicing of debts, sustenance of reserves, and other offsetting indices like the foreign exchange, all are issues that add to the formulation of a budget. And so it is not that when a budget is framed, everything is limited to expenditure on just projects. Again, you will know this government had taken a minimum of 30% for capital expenditure, which to our Nigerian economic and economic plans is reasonably strained for quite a long time. So attention is really focused about that. The government is extremely limited.
No, sorry, I think, Claire, I think we're good. I know that we're good on the short break now. The point is, again, as I said earlier, commentators believe that the embarrassing non-completion of the East-West Road speaks to the overall performance of the Ministry of Nigeria Delta Affairs. So if there is a flagship precisely, if it's a flagship project, why not concentrate on it and then get it off the books?
Yes, to concentrate on it and have other aspects of human livelihood in the region ignored will amount to government deliberate committal or suicide of the people. So while you wait for the road, while you give attention to the road, people have to live to use the road. And so it's impossible to ignore every other component of the ministry's mandate just because of the road. But we are certain we will give it the due attention by whatever alternative formulation that we are going to define.
All right, Honorable Minister, I still have a question for you, still on how to get the people to key into government projects and plans for the Niger Delta. But of course, when we come back from the break, we'll pose the question to you. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and today we're focusing on the Niger Delta and of course plans from the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs to carry out the government's plans for that region. We'll be right back after the break.
To help people stop getting sick. People think it's the ever-changing weather during Harmattan that makes them sick. Actually, it's the germs. Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs, including flu.
Dettol, endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
Would you like some water? It's cold, especially for you.
Which era are you living in? We have a fridge.
When everything else in your house is from the present, then why are your toilet cleaning methods from the past? Harpic, all-in-one for you. Compared to other toilet cleaners, Harpic removes top stains, kills all germs, and removes bad odors. For a shining clean and fresh toilet.
Wow.
You should also take the Harpic
all-in-one challenge.
You are watching NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't get the reach.
Thank you for joining us again. If you've just tuned in, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria live from the NTA, that's Africa's largest TV network. Now, we have joined us here in the Abuja studio to continue our conversation on the agenda for the Niger Delta. Brigadier General Paul Borough, his special advisor to the President on Niger Delta and coordinator, Presidential Amnesty Program. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you, madam.
All right, and then we also have joining us from our Port Harcourt Network studios at this time, the Acting Managing Director of the NDDC, that's the Niger Delta Development Commission, Mrs. Ibin Seminatiri. She's, of course, the former Commissioner for Information in Rivers State. It's our pleasure to have you on the program. Thank you very much there. So, of course, we're also going to be joined by another guest from our Benin Network Center this time.
Yes, indeed. From our Benin studio, we are being joined by Dr. Chris Akio. He's President Emeritus, Ijo Youth Council, and former Commissioner, Delta State. Dr. Akio, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you and good morning.
Okay, Honorable Minister, we'll come back to you. I mean, my colleague Claire, said, she had a question, but we have other guests now who are also, as it were, stakeholders in the Niger Delta, and they have their own perspectives on the number of matters, some of which we have raised and others that we're going to raise. The first question I would like to ask goes to the Presidential Advisor on the Niger Delta and coordinator of the Amnesty Program. The Honorable Minister did say that there are some challenges arising from perception of certain persons in the region that okay, the amnesty program is going to be there and the stipends will continue to come. Is the amnesty program an industry with some perpetual succession, or is it going to end some point, and if so, when?
Thank you very much. The amnesty program definitely will end someday. When the program was established in 2009, it was supposed to have ended last year, December last year. But when I took over first week of August last year, I had a periscopic look at the program, and I thought it would not be able to be, it would not be feasible by December because there was no exit strategy, and I came up with one. Is the strategy that I'm following up now. That strategy will bring to the fore exits in phases and as per on quarterly basis. By the end of this month, about 3,263 thereabout ex-agitators will exit the program, and that will save the federal government about 2.5 billion naira. The program, that exit program continues until about the end of next year, by which time the 30,000 ex-agitators that are captured in the program will have exited.
All right, so let's look at the match between those ex-agitators trained, who've received various trainings abroad, and those of them who've actually been gainfully employed. Now we have some very ridiculous statistics, being peddled. Some 151 out of about over 15,000. What's the exact figure? Let's do a match.
We are looking at two groups of ex-agitators now. The 30,000 captured in the program and those that are schooling abroad. Those schooling abroad are inclusive of this 30,000, in addition to persons that are within the impact area due to oil degradation. That is why the number of those schooling abroad is bloated.
No, but what I'm saying, those that have been trained, some of them do go abroad to train,
yes.
Maybe entrepreneurship, vocational studies and all that, and they are back.
Yes.
Have they been, how many of them have been gainfully employed? That's what I'm saying.
Now, the exact number of those have been gainfully employed, I cannot tell now, but about 200 have been employed, and the balance are still being sourced for employment. That takes me to visitations to development partners. I visited the local content board in order to allow some of them to be employed. That has made us to establish technical partners between my program and the local content. I've also met with the NDDC. There are also plans to reintegrate a number. It's ongoing. I've also met with the MDGs. I met with the Ministry of Environment. We have been meeting about twice now with the Ministry of Environment. We're meeting next day after tomorrow to see how some of the ex-agitators who are captured in the program will be involved in the cleaning up exercise from Ogoni land. Within this quarter, I believe that exercise will start up.
Okay. All right. Of course, you have seen the other guys on the screen. We introduced them a moment ago. And also you have on the screen there our Twitter handle, NTA, at NTA GMN. You can join the conversation. We have a number of tweets already. We'll read them out in the course of the program. Just before we go over to the other guests at the remote locations, I would like to ask this question again. You talked about an exit strategy. Now, we're, again, to use the phrase, stakeholders involved in the exit strategy. Was there a buy-in of the beneficiaries of the program?
Yes, please. Those captured that I really want to exit for now, they're about 13,000. Okay. Yes. And like I said, I have this plan in timeline, in phases. By the end of this quarter, about 6,000 will be preparing to exit the program. And that is how it is all the way until December next year, because I came up with a program of 2 years, okay, minimum, to exit all that are captured in the program.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll come back to you in the course of all of this. Claire, I just would like us to go to Port Harcourt now, where the acting managing director of NDDC, of course, you saw her on the screen a moment ago. But Mrs. Seminatore, just to ask you this question, what is it that you have found since you assumed office as the acting chief executive of the NDDC? And take that along with what's the widespread public perception that NDDC is almost always about contract awards, but in the end, there's no meaningful impact of the commission.
Thank you, Kingsley. Of course, you do know that the NDDC Act established the commission to be able to deliver to the people of the region way beyond contracts. The first thing that the NDDC is supposed to do is to help provide policy and guidelines for the Niger Delta region, especially as it regards the interventions of governments at the 3 tiers as well as the companies that operate in the region. Unfortunately, with time, there was some kind of derailment, and I use that word advisedly, in the sense that very often what you then saw, because of the huge infrastructural challenges in the region, was that the commission then got involved in the provision of infrastructure in such a manner that there appeared to be nothing else except contract awards going on. However, this, like I said, is a perception issue, because you do have a commission that does way beyond that. But the good news is that we have moved on. The good news is that we have a new government that is thinking partnership, integration with regards to development of the Niger Delta area. And so you have all of the agencies that are intervening in the region collaborating to ensure that we drive development to the region. So whether it's the NDDC, who, like we like to say, are the locals, we're right here, we're the grassroots, and so we're the implementers, or it's the Niger Delta Ministry that is in Abuja helping us drive that development, or it's the amnesty program that is trying to ensure that they tie all of the knots and get everyone into the boat, you do find that all of these 3 agencies are then collaborating to guarantee the people of the Niger Delta region development that is fast-tracked.
All right, Mrs. Seminatore, let me still stay with you. I'm sure you may be relatively new on the seat, but you're a daughter of the region, so you know quite a lot going around. There have been calls for the scrapping of the NDDC for alleged, of course, non-performance. Now, so far, what can you tell us about the project's completion rates before going forward? How many of the projects that the NDDC embarked upon have been completed? What is the rate, and what is the value, vis-a-vis, the life or living condition of the people of the Niger Delta?
Claire, let me first say that we must be careful not to throw away the baby with the bathwater, and sometimes that's what we tend to do. You don't cut off your nose to spite your face, or you don't do that. The NDDC, yes, has had challenges. Indeed, if you look at it, has every institution in the country. So can you, for instance, say, because we are now hearing of some of these amazing stories with regards to the spendings on security, we should scrap the Nigerian military, or we should scrap the office of the NSA. And I won't go further, but this is the kind of thing you're saying if you say you scrap a commission. But having said that, you have a commission that is, for instance, sending over 1,200 children to study in the areas of science, health, engineering, etc., etc. And so you have a scholarship program that has delivered about 1,209 additional manpower in those strategic sectors in higher degree levels in a period of about 4 or 5 years. You have a commission that, yes, has challenges, but is building major bridges and major roads connecting communities. For instance, you have the Ogbeanembe Road, which for me is a flagship road, and it's a road that we're partnering with SPDC to deliver. And if you've ever attempted to travel to Nembe or to Brass, you will understand why that road is critical. The kinds of resources that you need to drive projects like that is not something that can come out from the chunk of the federal government budget. However, when you have a commission like the NDDC that is funded from a multiplicity of sources, including the companies that operate in the region who have to deliver a percentage, about 3% of their annual budget, or the ecological fund, or the other things. And by the way, let me just say that the NDDC has hardly received the amount of funds it ought to have received. Since its inception to date, it's received just about 500 billion. You might think that that's a whole lot of money, but when you see, for instance, that when you talk of interventions in areas where you have problems, you're looking at budgets that run into trillions, then you will see that 500 billion, or since 2000 to 2016, is not as huge as it might seem. Could we have deployed that better? Indeed, we could have. But that's the point. The point is we've got to think about how do we deal with the structures, with the systemic problems, not how do we throw away the baby with the bathwater.
Yeah, well, just to stick with the point that you raised in terms of the collaboration between, say, the NDDC and SPDC, observers have often wondered how much synergy there is between the NDDC and local governments, for instance, and between the NDDC and state governments. There's often some disconnect. You have a multiplicity of projects of the various arms of government working at cross purposes. Have you evaluated this, and what do you think is the way out?
Indeed, we have. And yes, you're right. Again, I'm not in any way saying that we don't have these kinds of situations that leave a lot of concern and cause for worry. But again, it's our country, it's our region. We've got to figure it out. We've got to deal with it. But much as we have these bad stories, we've got to talk about the good stories. We have a project, the Mother and Child Hospital. There's a collaboration between the NDDC and the River State government, 50-50. And the River State government, by the way, under the previous administration, had paid its own part of that. We've got a poultry collaboration with the Cross River State government that is still ongoing. And I can, list several of these. I do know that you might not see the same kinds of collaboration in terms of funding partnerships with local government councils because they don't have the funds. But we have situations where we're collaborating with regards to technical expertise or communal support and things like that. And that's the way it ought to be. Now, the idea behind the NDDC was an institution that will encourage partnership in development. And when you look at the Niger Delta Development Master Plan, that's the underpinning issue there. That's what it is about. this is the commission, you put it all together and you create the relevant partnerships for development in the region. We did get it wrong at some point. The question is, are we prepared to get it right? And I think that's what President Buhari is doing. He's insisting that we get it right. He insists that we get back on track with regards to the institutions in the country, which is why you find the Amnesty Office, the Niger Delta Ministry, the NDDC, the Ministry of Environment, and all of the people who must deliver to the people of the Niger Delta region working together to do so.
Mrs. Seminatari, thank you, and we'll get back to you to again look at the how to get there. Although the minister here had said the how is not the problem, it's getting the people to key into government plans. But let's go to Benin, where we have Dr. Chris Ekiyo. Dr. Chris Ekiyo, of course, former Ijo Youth Council. Dr. Ekiyo, once again, thank you for joining us. You've listened to the contributions. Here we have the Minister of the Niger Delta. We have, of course, the Special Advisor to the President and the Coordinator, Presidential Amnesty Program. And in Port Harcourt, we have the acting MD of the NDDC. Do you think all of these have added value to the life of the Niger Delta? Have they justified their establishments?
All right, thank you. Good morning once again. It's quite exciting to find out that you have those three very strategic offices now working together to provide for us the kind of partnership that is long expected. My take is very clear. I've always said that all the blueprints to resolve and fix the Niger Delta exist from the days of Dr. Brie. The issue had been implementation. Oftentimes, like the NDDC actor said, you create policies, you draw a budget, but you don't give the required funding to ensure that that budget is delivered. And then other times, you have square pegs in round holes, manning agencies that should give that delivery. So you create that disconnect. And then sometimes you decide for the people what you want to give to them without recourse to talking to the people. Incidentally, I'm excited to hear General Apollo say he's been talking to the partners, which is a good one because you need to take feelers from people and then partner properly to deliver the results. If you look at the East-West Road that the Honorable Minister was talking about, we have no basis not to have completed that road. But the designs, the planning was done exclusively by people who didn't get in touch with the terrain. So you have a region not properly planned for. Now he has to go back. It's a setback. But what the challenge had been issue, is funding for that road. And for me, I thought that was a misplaced priority for the last administration to put the East-West Road in the budget of the Ministry of Niger Delta. When the Ministry of Niger Delta was created, I was president of IRC under Yaradua, and we mooted an idea like the Ministry of Lagos. And we brought into it and said, this is a wonderful one who was going to do it. The idea was for that ministry to complement NDC in creating new towns, building infrastructure to bridge the gap directly from federal government ports. Now, they took a project from, for instance, the Ministry of Works to the Niger Delta Ministry. Building federal roads should be the responsibility of the Ministry of Works and Transport. So that body is eating the budget, for instance, that should be spent on other infrastructure in the Niger Delta Ministry. I want to suggest to the minister that he should stay focused on his flagship project, deliver that road, because that road is an albatross that is haunting the government. The Niger Delta people, the Nigerian people are looking up to the delivery of that road. For the amnesty program, I'm quite sure that General P.T. Boro is bringing a complete re-engineering. Initially, the rush with which we started a whole lot was to get these guys off the creeks, reduce the violence, return peace, and then we started thinking of how to fix the guys that have been removed from the creeks. And so the training the capacity building program came up, the training came up, and of course to train 30,000 people is not child's play. So it needs to go through a process. I still think that even a 2 years exit plan is too short, because that office will be overwhelmed with exiting 30,000 people in 2 years. In conflict resolution all over the world, you need to go through a period. You need 4 years, 5 years to train people. You probably need a similar 5 years to train non-agitators to balance out, because if you continue to maintain focus on the agitators alone, it simply looks like you are gratifying violence. So the government must deliberately also develop people who were either to not violent prone. And these two will be pushed in systemically over a longer period than 2 years, by my own understanding, into the society. You're talking about giving them jobs, sustaining their empowerment program, monitoring, and making sure that governments investment is not just thrown into the streets. If you have trained somebody on, let's say, rigging, you have a rigger, and then you send him back to the street without finding him where to work, you have not done anything. NPDC is another development partner that must come in and say, okay, for instance, over the years, they made an active oil exploration. Now we have manpower produced by this program. Can we engage them and locally now develop a partnership that can now cost this manpower to produce and give back to the economy? Because you have put government money on these people. You need to get them to generate returns to government. Now, for the NDDC, the MD got it right when she said that the framework is to work with development partners. What had happened in the past is that most people who get into the office suddenly begin to think there's an opportunity to just gratify their political accolades, friends, and partners, and they just arbitrarily issue contracts out, and there's no follow-up. All the projects that NDDC is running are valuable projects in the region. The problem has been that funding, like she rightly said, every year is underfunded, and then the little fund that's available, each year they keep awarding new contracts rather than follow up with what is existing and finish it so that you know that you have done something that can be pointed out. I want to encourage the new MD to start delivering valuable and laudable projects rather than dive into new ones, so that she can look back after 3-4 years and say, look, we were able to now complete all these big visions. And until that is done, the people of the Niger Delta are still patiently waiting, but none of the issue that caused the conflict has been fully addressed. The environmental degradation is still there, and that's where partnership with the Ministry of Environment is important. Luckily, the Honorable Minister too, was part of the people that sat down when we designed the amnesty program.
Dr. Chris Okiyo, thank you. I'd like to hear your take on the minister's earlier statement that the problem now, the challenge now, or the reason for the lag in developmental projects in the region is the lack of cooperation coming from the people of the host communities. Now, do you think that is the real issue? And if so, how can we begin to get the people of the region to begin to key into all government programs and projects?
Okay. I maybe say that is not the case from the feelers I get here that I know. The people of the Niger Delta are desirous of having development projects. The only issue that has been there is that in developing our region, we have demanded that we should also be part and parcel of the process. The people don't want to sit at home. You wake up in the morning and somebody's building you a road, somebody's building you a house. Do you know if I wanted a bungalow, you're giving me a duplex? So we need to be part of the process, and that's why the First Minister, Ufot Ekaite, created what you call the Infrastructure Subcommittee, where stakeholders will sit with the minister and design what they think is feasible for their people. And then the minister translates that into his policies. And in delivering that, he gets the communities to participate. Take the East-West Road, for instance. It has succeeded largely because there is a community partnership. The dredging, the supplies, the people on the East-West axis played major role. They created opportunity for the pathways, they made concession, and they provided the dredge sand, they provided roads, and so that you build infrastructure while empowering the people. And I think that's where the disconnect is. The people are saying we can't wake up in the morning and then you are building all this place and we are not participating. If you build us a road and we don't have capacity to drive a car on the road, it's vanity. So put us in the project so we can participate. We do the things that we are able to do. Labor, provision, supplies, all that should be factored in the design of those projects in the Niger Delta. Roosevelt did it in the US. He got Americans to build America, and in doing that, he put money in the pockets of Americans. And that is what the Niger Delta people are saying, that in developing our region, you must factor our people and our economic index in that project. And I don't think it's out of place to make such a request.
All right. Thank you very much there, Dr. Chris Okiyo, speaking to us from our Benin Network Center. We'll get back to you before we wrap up this conversation. As we said earlier, we have a number of tweets in already. Ibrahim Tudu writes, I personally pity the Niger Delta. They've been failed by successive governments and the multinational corporations. Niger Delta must be cleaned. Much was sunken in the region, but not much transparency. And there's also another one from Adubayo Hafiz. It says federal government should ensure that funds for the Nigeria Delta Ministry, NDDC, and all other government agencies are judiciously spent. We'll take some other tweets in the course of the conversation. Let's come back to the Abuja studios. Jeraboro, you listened to the remarks by Dr. Akiyo. 2 points that I would like you to respond to. The first one has to do with the management of the former agitators after the exit program. You train them, how do they get set up? Do you have setup packs for them? That's one leg of it. And the second point that he also mentioned that it would appear that the 2-year framework that you have indicated, that the 2-year framework probably will be too limited.
Yes. Thank you very much. I do have starter packs for ex-agitators who have been trained and about to exit the program. By the end of next month, about 1,043 will receive starter packs because it's an ongoing program. And by this, as I mentioned to them when the contract was being awarded, they should be prepared to exit the program. They have been preparing their minds about that. About the 2-year exit plans, it is doable, it's achievable. Yes, if those that are affected are serious about what they want to achieve, we should be able to achieve 2 years plan in exiting the 30,000 that are captured in the program. It's a mindset thing. The federal government cannot continue paying stipends for a period without an exit. That is why I came up with about a 2 years plan, and I have it in timelines, and I wish with collaboration with leaders of the program, we can achieve that.
Okay, sorry, we'll come back to you, Special Advisor, but let's get back to Port Harcourt, where the acting MD NDDC is. Mrs. Seminatari, let's look at, earlier you talked about collaborating with, of course, agencies like the Office of the Presidential Amnesty Program to, of course, reintegrate beneficiaries of the program. Do you have any specific plan to achieve this?
Again, myself and the SA to the President on the Niger Delta have had conversations along this line, and we have said that we've got to find ways to use, if we've got people who've been trained, whether as undersea welders or as construction people, then part of what we're agreeing to do is to work out a program where if people are doing work for the commission, or if they're contractors in the region, or indeed, again, relying on what the Act empowers us to do, which is to decide how companies that will work in the region will work and things like that, and those who intervene, relying on that, on the provisions of that Act. Part of what we can do is to act, if you like, as a kind of garage.
We do apologize, of course, for the loss of audio from Port Harcourt. The acting managing director of the NDDC, Mrs. Ibim Seminatari, was actually responding to a question. Kingsley.
Yeah, we'll come back to her, I'm sure, once the snag is sorted out, the audio snag is sorted out. But let's come back to the Honorable Minister of Niger Delta. You've listened to the other guests on the program, what they've said. You know, Chris Akiyo, speaking to us from our Benin Network Center, as well as the Amnesty program. What would you like now? Because again, there's emphasis on the East-West Road. It's a flagship project. Get it completed. That's the exhortation that you're hearing. And in particular, also, I mean, let's be open about this in the sense that, other than the East-West Road, what else does the Ministry of Nigeria Delta do? People have asked that question.
Well, I appreciate the concern of every Nigerian on that project. I share in it as well. At the same time, I think beyond just the East-West Road, when I talked about the problems besetting the area on the mandate of the ministry, I said we have a program to mobilize the people to understand what the government is doing, which is what Ekio referred to as having the people commit to what they are receiving. But to ask what other things we are doing, you will be surprised that from the people that the ministry has trained, there is an assemblage corporate organization in Calabar making what we call Minda, a handset. If I knew this question would come out, I would have brought one of them. It's in circulation. You know, a GSM handset. Minda, Ministry of Niger Delta, you know, Affairs. And people who are using it have confessed to the efficacy of that device. And apart from that, we have acquisition centers being constructed, though paucity of funds has hindered the quick completion. But just yesterday, we got a product from the test run of our cassava processing factory, where byproducts of gari like starch, animal feed are also packaged. By the time we commission it, I think we'll be able to get that in larger quantities, because it's expected that that will produce about 2 tons of gari in a day.
All right, Honorable Minister, we still have you with us. We've re-established contact with Port Harcourt. Mrs. Ibim Seminatari, thank you for coming back. We do apologize for this malfunction of our audio system, but that's been settled now. You were responding to my question on what plans exactly you have, of course, to reintegrate beneficiaries of the amnesty program in your collaborative efforts with the office.
Yes, and I did say that across several things. One of the ways would be working with those who do work in the region to act as a guarantor and get them to absorb these professionals, these ex-agitators who have become professionals in various areas. The other thing is that we're very committed to wealth creation in this budget year, and we're working to see how we can grow our people from those who are not in entrepreneurs at all, move them into becoming micro, and move those in micro to small, those in small to medium. So we're creating a lot of entrepreneurs within the region. We've got a lot of support that we give to the agri program, as well as to other areas. So basically, our job would be to collaborate with the amnesty program and to absorb those whom we can from this group, and those who we can't get into placements, to find ways to ease them into becoming entrepreneurs in their own right. Let me say very quickly, Claire, and perhaps just doing this because I heard Chris talk about the matter of completion of projects, that already what we're doing is we've gone back to debts. We're owing debts since 2009, and I know that just this week we've kind of begun to clear those debts because we're really focused on completion of projects. And for our budget for 2016, we're committing at least 70% to about 80% of that towards completion of existing projects. So I think already all of us together are working towards delivering for the region, whether it is the NDDC or the amnesty program or the Niger Delta Ministry. It's clear that it's a new day, and I think that's what we should look at moving on. How do we move on?
All right, but NDDC, just before we let you go, we've got quite a number of tweets. One of them is from Andrew Ogboro, and he's concerned about the quality of the projects that the NDDC undertakes. I'll read it out to you. He said, please, most of the NDDC projects are substandard and often abandoned in the course of construction. You've spoken to that issue, but what about the quality of the projects that the NDDC does?
Definitely, Claire. If you watched, I was actually appalled at some of what I saw when I went inspecting projects. I was definitely appalled. And like I said, it's a new dawn. One of the things we've said is that we will not be paying contractors who haven't delivered on quality projects. If we get to a site, before we pay the next IPC, we will get 3 levels of monitoring. There will be the usual monitoring by the state office. There would be another level of monitoring from the head office, and there will be a 3rd level of monitoring by the MD's special monitoring team, who, interestingly, people will not know because they won't have a chance to figure out who is coming to see what they're doing. But there is a fourth level indeed, which is going to be civil society. We've been meeting with the communities and civil society groups, and we've asked community leaders and civil society groups to be our eyes. And we've said to them, please be our eyes, and before we make any payments on projects, we will clear with civil society that work in those regions, we will clear with community leaders, and we do have a few, if you like, gadflies around the region that will be reporting to us with regards to quality of projects.
All right, Acting Managing Director, NDDC, Ibim Seminatari, many thanks to you for joining in our conversation.
Thank you, Claire.
Right, this is Good Morning Nigeria, and I hand over the baton to Kingsley. You have the set
just beside me here. There's no baton to hand over. We just all right. Let's continue. We have a number of tweets, as we said. Ibma Satu writes, and this is specific to the general. So General Borough should try and attend to phase 3 because all the slots approved for it were used up by ghosts. And the communities should be enlightened on the relevance of the projects that are intended for them, as they are quite hostile. In other words, the communities.
And Amino Al-Hassan also tweets, we must commend President Buhari for insisting that the Niger Delta must get it right. The focal point is funding and excellent implementation.
All right, so General Borough, you listened to that tweet saying that phase 3 or that some of the slots were taken up by ghosts. That's one leg. Second leg, there have been reports in the media about some persons who were on the amnesty program and schooling abroad, and they didn't have their fees paid, and they've been sent out of school, some of them even destitute. What's your reaction?
Thank you very much. About the phase 3 ex-agitators captured in the program, I'm meeting with them by Thursday. They wrote they wanted to meet with me. But as we speak, the amnesty program is not indebted to anyone, because I've settled all debts that I met. And that,
at home and abroad?
Yes, please. Okay. Yeah, maybe isolated cases, but say we're owing, no, we're not owing anyone. The phase 3 is the group that joined up in the last phase of the program, and I really want to focus on them to find out what's happening, and that made me to establish biometric verification. I started in Port Harcourt. It's going to be all the way. The next will be in Bayelsa, and then I will get to where they are in Edo. That's where most of them are. So by the time the result of the biometric verification is out, I think it will be sorted out concerning the phase 3 elements. Thank you.
All right. I was just wondering, the Honorable Minister will come to you. I think that is also a relevant question for the other guests. We keep talking about getting infrastructure into the Niger Delta. In the end, some questions are relevant with regard to the measurement of the impact of what is being done. In other words, do we have indices of human development in the Niger Delta? Have we seen a rise or a fall, or just stagnation? Claire, we have another guest.
Of course, we have Kingsley. We have in Port Harcourt, who's just joined us, although he's been, of course, waiting for quite some time. Marvin Yobana. Marvin Yobana is a human rights activist from the Niger Delta. Marvin, we sincerely appreciate you having to wait for this long. Of course, you were there quite early in Port Harcourt. But so far, you've listened to the conversation. It's all about developing the Niger Delta and how the people of the region can key into those projects. What are your views so far? Just let's share your perspective on why the region has remained the way it is.
Well, thank you very much, Claire, for having me. I think that the speakers before me have dealt with the issues very well. The clear issues on this Niger Delta development is about poor funding. I think that, like, for instance, the Niger Delta Development Commission, the oil companies that are supposed to be contributors, they are not actually contributing that much. And even the federal government, they are not living up to their responsibility, because as we speak up till now, federal government is owing the Niger Delta Development Commission more than 50% of their required contribution into these agencies. That is why you have jobs that people say are not completed. And let's be very clear on these issues. The NDDC is supposed to be an intervention agency. So what they are supposed to do is to complement the state governments, the local governments. But as we speak today in the Niger Delta, you will find more projects of the NDDC in the 9 states of the Niger Delta than even the state governments. So these are some of the challenges we have. And it's in this kind of economy right now that we have dwindling resources, it is very important that those resources that we have should be channeled properly. In terms of the amnesty program, I think it's going on well, but we have to have a fallback plan. Which is the fallback plan? Those persons in the Niger Delta who are law-abiding, who are not integrated in that program, should also have a program where they should also benefit. That will give them a sense of belonging, and they will not be looking at those persons who perpetrate crime as role models. Because we send the wrong precedents when we keep contributing to those persons, only those persons who are violent, than those youths that are less restive.
But I was just wondering, Marvin, that's the same point that Dr. Chris Akiyo made earlier from our Benin Network Center. I'm wondering, should that also be should that also be the responsibility of the federal government? What should the states and local governments be doing in that regard?
Definitely, that is one area I wanted to talk about. The state government has a responsibility to ensure that the amnesty program that the federal government has piloted so far, that each of these intakes into the amnesty program, they come from various states. The state government is supposed to take part in the reintegration process, where these persons are returned back to their states, and they should also provide the incentives to these people to be able to start their lives. That is what the state governments should do. They cannot leave everything for the federal government. And even at that, the state governments transferring their responsibility to these intervention agencies like NDDC and the Ministry of Niger Delta, it's something that is worrisome, because these different departments are supposed to ameliorate the sufferings of those people where the state government and local governments are not able to meet up. But the problem is that it seems that the state governments have channeled their resources into politics rather than working for the people, and that is one of the key problems we have. So as a Niger Delta indigene, the issues of environmental degradation is something that is very worrisome in the Niger Delta. But if you look at the UNEP report, for instance, the report says that an alternative means of water should be given to the people of Ogonis. But as we speak today, till now, the state government have not worked in that direction. They are still waiting for federal government to come and do it. So these are some of the little challenges we find in the Niger Delta.
All right, Marvin, thank you very much for your brief contribution. We'll quickly go over to Benin, where Dr. Chris Akiyo is. Dr. Chris Akiyo, I'm asking you this question, of course, because of your previous position as, the former Ijo Youth Council president. Now, in January, that's last month, there were renewed attack on gas pipeline facilities in Delta and other parts of the country. Now, we know the cost of this in the heat of the militancy during in the early part of 2007, 2008 and all that, and what it did to, the country's revenue from oil. Now, the introduction of the amnesty program sparked up our production to almost even 2.7 million barrels per day. Now there seems to be a resurgence. How can we quickly nip it in the bud before it escalates?
All right, thank you. Globally, violence is something that you cannot completely, put a stop to. But what has happened is that between 1996 and 2009, the issues of the Niger Delta really were resolved majorly by the compromise made by the federal government with this amnesty program. Now, what happened in January is a setback that I strongly believe that with the appropriate minds working together, a few stakeholders getting back on board, will be resolved. And I think the Delta State government, the governor of Okoa and a few other interested parties have delved into trying to stem the tide. Violence on the oil infrastructure, I have said, will be there. Will always be there, because there is this same disconnect. When we initiated the amnesty program, we talked about the Coastal Guard. And I made a submission. I said, some of these people are already pro-arm in their life. Now, they like guns. If you ask people to choose between using guns and using pens, some of these ex-agitators will still tell you,
I'm a soldier. In their minds thinking, they're like guns. So what government needs to do is to translate that into a positive action. And then I made a submission. I said you can enlist this in the military, you can enlist them in the paramilitary, you can train them as a special unit, strictly for pipeline monitoring, monitored by the federal government, military or paramilitary, which means they can be a special unit of the Nigerian police or the Nigerian army, whose job is like that of the Coastal Guard, trained to ensure that pipeline infrastructure, vessels and all that are protected. But I don't know why the government is skeptical about that element. So some of those people who still feel that we still like the gun, will at the slightest misgiving jump on the pipelines. However, we condemn it totally. We believe that at this time that our economy is shaking, nobody should do anything that should threaten us further, because it's going to be a Nigerian issue in the end. And I think that Mr. President also needs to look in the books and use the stick and carrot approach in dealing with the people of the Niger Delta, so there is no perception of an exclusion. You can have a wonderful policy. If the implementation doesn't seem to speak so when you start implementing, it calls for questioning. So my appeal would be that the Ministry of Environment, the Amnesty Program, the NDDC, the Ministry of Niger Delta, those offices must begin to look for stakeholders who can interface, so they'll be dealing with the issues as expected by the communities. Marvin Yobana has said something. You can't do things and communities don't feel involved. It's very key. And that's where those kind of people are always available. But we will not rest on our oars. We have been talking since we had that explosion in January. We have tried to speak with a lot of people. General Boro did not rest. He was in Warri, he was in Port Harcourt, trying to find solutions to this problem. I want to commend him for that. Because it's his purview to make sure there's peace in the Niger Delta. But you see again, I see an underfunding of the program. A program that has moved up oil to that level is going to be funded or underfunded. And then if that office is not able to maintain, because beyond paying stipend, people think the Amnesty is about paying stipend. It is building capacity. It has brought out pilots, engineers, industrialists, farmers in that program who are already now going back to the system. If today Nigeria wants to run an airline, the Amnesty program alone can feed the Nigerian Airways with 30 pilots, type rated for Boeing 737. And these were people that were written off, have been issued by the government as militants.
All right, Dr. Chris Akiyo speaking to us from our Benin Network Center. We're pressed for time now. I would like to thank you for your contributions to our conversation this morning.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to express the views of the Niger Delta people.
Thank you very much. All right, let's take a couple of other tweets that we have. Henry Okrikwa, he writes, General Boro, please explain why 65 to 70-year-old persons were captured under fictitious names, precisely in Berebeyaga camp in Burutu local government area of Delta State. Once again from Henry Okrikwa. And
Errol Brown says, what is the synergy between the Ministry of Niger Delta and other intervention agencies in the region? I'm sure that this issue, of course, the guests here have spoken to this issue.
That's right. Let's take General Boro's remark on the fictitious names, and then we call it a day with him. General Boro, his fictitious names, 60 to 70, 65, 75-year-old, according to the tweet, having fictitious names in a camp somewhere in Burutu, Niger Delta.
Well, thank you very much. Like I said, I've started a biometric verification exercise in Port Harcourt. Our next location will be Bielsa. They will move to Delta, Edo, and Ondo before we get it right. So this exercise will verify if truly we have persons that are not captured in the program.
All right, thank you very much, Special Advisor. We'll get back. Let's quickly take your last words, Marvin Yobana. Again, how can we nip in the bud the emerging or the resurfacing of the bombings or vandalization of gas pipelines?
Well, Claire, this is very simple. The Niger Delta community leaders, talking about the chiefs, the elites in the society, the youth leaders, the women leaders, the religious leaders in every community in the Niger Delta where these pipelines go through, they know who is who and who does what. SPDC has a program they call surveillance contractors. That program in the Ogoni axis is meant for those persons who look after this pipeline and report to them on a daily basis. I think that the federal government should consider what Chris Ekio said. I am not subscribing to those ones who are using arms to guard oil facilities, but a sort of surveillance, a collaboration within the community and the federal government and all necessary stakeholders. This will be able to checkmate those persons who carry out these activities. And in some areas that are prone, maybe offshore and all that they cannot do, then the regular security agencies like the Navy and the others can take care of that. I think that if we do this, we know that the resources of this country is not that much as we used to have it before, and it is our responsibility to protect our resources in Nigeria and ensure that the government has money to do the work for us. So I think the
there is a form of development going on. At least you understand that we have just started as an administration. And the first way to appreciate the progress being made is the fact that we all have just had, in fact, there was a convention of all necessary stakeholders in terms of security, peace, intervention agencies, coordinated by the ministry about 2 weeks ago. Right now, we are putting together a team that will work with the operational basis of the NDDC and the amnesty program. And we have all nominated our people to work on that team, which will soon begin to engender what is required to mobilize the populace in understanding our own programs. And effectively, therefore, the indices of human development in academic form, low for the whole country, lower for the region. But in terms of appreciation of activities, improving and sure to improve better.
All right, Honorable Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Pastor Usani Uguru Usani, thank you very much for joining in the conversation this morning.
You're welcome.
This is Good Morning Nigeria, and that does it for our conversation. We looked at the Niger Delta region and, of course, how we can get the region going forward. Now to sports.
That's right. Let's go ahead with the sports stories, and here's our correspondent with details.
Ahead of next month's 2017 African Cup of Nations qualifier between Nigeria and Egypt, the Nigerian Football Federation will this week inspect facilities and equipment at the Ahmadu Bello Stadium in Kaduna. NFF General Secretary Mohammed Sanusi said on Monday that the inspection visit will take place on Thursday, and the facilities to be inspected include the stadium playing pitch, dressing rooms, scoreboard, sanitary facilities, spectator stand, and media facilities. It could be recalled that last Friday, the NFF concluded plans to have each free match at the Kaduna Stadium, despite indications that Coach Sunday Lise won the game to be played in Port Harcourt. Nigeria is currently second on the Group G table with 4 points from 2 matches, while Egypt remains top of the log with maximum 6 points. The Super Eagles of Nigeria takes on the Pharaohs of Egypt on Wednesday, 23rd of March, in one of the day 3 matches of the Gabon 2016 AFCON series. The return leg will be played in Egypt 5 days later. And in golf, Japan's Hideki Matsuyama won his second PGA Tour event by beating Ricky Fowler of America in the 4th playoff hole of the Phoenix Open. Both players had 4 under runs of 67 to finish on 14 under and matched each other with 2 pars and a birdie on the first 3 extra holes. But Fowler drove into the water on the 17th, as he had also done in his round, allowing Matsuyama to win with a par.
For birdie. That's a better line than English. Is it ever? Matsuyama drills it home.
In tennis, British number 3 Naomi Bedi has broken into the world's top 100 for the 4th time after winning an ATF tournament in the United States. The 25-year-old from Stockport beat American wildcard Robin Anderson 6-7, 6-0, 6-2 to win a 9th ITF singles title.
Right, time to take a quick check on the weather forecast for the rest of the day.
You're welcome to today's weather forecast. Dust is still in suspension over most parts of the country, impairing visibility at varying meters. Well, we are still in the dust season. And on to today's forecast, the north down to the inland cities of the south will be in visibility range of about 2 to 5 kilometers in dust haze, though places around Yawa, Mina, Abuja axis might record 1,000 meters or less in visibility values. And partly cloudy skies are anticipated over the coast, though we have increased prospects of cloudiness around the southeastern coast. And for temperature values across Abuja and other cities across Nigeria, please stand by.